dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today's video is called My Mother Was the Maid and Her Bosses Wouldn't Let Her Use the Same Cups and Toilet Paper as Them. This according to popular journalist Manoel Soares. So many places I need to go with this particular video. I discovered this segment of this interview with Manoel Soares. I saw it maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I says I definitely have to talk about it. But once again, Black Brazilian is bringing a personal experience to something that I've discussed on the blog throughout the years. So I wanted to cover this today. um, Wanted to request that you all like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, click on that notification bell. And with that said, I'm going to get directly into this video for tonight. Okay, so this is Manoel Soares. The video for today is a short clip from an interview, and like previous interviews that I've done, or done a overdub. This interview was also taken from a podcast called Quem Pode Pode, and it was a podcast. It's hosted by actresses Giovanna Eubank and Fernanda Paes Leme. From what I understand, one of those women has recently left that show. I got to find out what happened there. And I have to tell you that I only became aware of Soares after he had already been a journalist for some years. I think he was working on a smaller television network. He came to my attention when he started appearing on Brazil's top television network, Rede Global, or Global Television Network. I would say I discovered him around 2018 or so. And then on the network's popular talk show, Encontro com Patrícia Poeta, it was a talk show that he hosted with another journalist named Patrícia Poeta. There was a lot of commotion on that program, as there was a type of conflict going on between the two of them, in which viewers noted the ways that Poeta constantly disrespected Soares live on television during the program. In July of 2023, Soares ended up being fired from the program and fired from Global, as a whole. They let him go. A lot of people who were watching what was going on between these two, it just seemed like, for the Black community, people were just like, look at this white woman and how she's treating this Black co-host. It seemed clear that Patrícia Poeta, this woman here, didn't really like having the show co-hosted with Manoel Soares. So they ended up letting him go. That's a whole nother story in itself. Soares is very popular among Afro-Brazilians and is known for expressing his opinions on a number of social issues. This should come as no surprise, as Soares was the co-founder of the famed NGO known as CUFA, the Central Única das Favelas. Okay, the favelas are the low-income areas in the surrounding hills of many cities around Brazil. The NGO was founded in 1999 by a group of young Black people from the famous favela known as Cidade de Deus, or City of God. Yes, the same favela that gave name to the 2002 blockbuster film of the same name, which I've often talked about on this particular channel, as well as on the blog. These are just some pictures from some of the social programs from CUFA. The NGO is present in all of Brazil's 26 states. The NGO has been instrumental in promoting sports, leisure, cultural activities, and practices such as graffiti, hip hop, audiovisual productions, basketball, literature, among other activities for young people through its various social projects. Now, today I want to focus specifically on a 1-minute segment from the podcast in which Soares discusses his memories of his mother's life as a maid. When I heard his recollections, again, I think this interview I don't remember what month it's, I would say in the last couple of months, if not more recent. His recollections of what his mother dealt with immediately reminded me of a book by the rapper known as Preta Rara. About 5 or so years ago, Preta Rara, this woman in this picture, her name means a rare Black woman. She took perhaps hundreds, I don't know, thousands of stories from women across Brazil who had worked at maids in the homes of other, mostly, middle class Brazilian homes across the country. So this post is from October of 2019. I had to talk about it. She says that, that Brazil had 350 years of, slavery, enslaved Africans. The modern slave quarters is the maid's room. A former maid, rapper, historian, Preta Rara releases a book on the work experience of hundreds of maids. She talks about this, and this goes perfect with what I often talk about. This kind of, even in the 2024, you still have this master slave type of hierarchy where certain people feel like they're up here and they have the right to treat other people down here. And as Brazil is such a class-based society, that class basis is often rooted in race because it's automatically assumed that Black people are from the lower classes. I saw a video a couple of weeks ago where a young lady was saying, like, it doesn't matter what education you have. People are going to treat you according to what you look like, and they believe Black people don't have any value. So she's making a comparison between slavery and domestic work, how the maids are treated in these homes. Hundreds of stories that came across. So she just started collecting these stories and putting them in a book. Now, what I wanted to focus on particular here, how Brazilian middle class homes, obviously mostly white, will often talk about the maid as they're like one of the family. But according to the rapper, the above phrase is often repeated by abusive bosses and commonly used to trample on all labor rights of the non-family worker, but a person selling her workforce. She says that they're treated as if they were well, the question is, are they really treated as if they were family? And the maids across the country started to rise up. I'm talk about that in a minute. She says, here in Brazil, the colonial rancidity is so great that most employers believe that domestic workers are privately owned. It is the question of serving. With the book, the purpose is really to provoke this discussion and to be the rock in the shoe to generate discomfort. Now, I lived in Brazil in Sao Paulo between 2012 and 2021. And I remember in 2013 how big this was when what they call the domestic workers law was passed, because it gave maids across the country just the minimum rights that they deserve. Let me see, receiving a minimum wage per month, payment guaranteed by law, working 8 hours a day, 44 hours weekly, and overtime. Let me see what else here. So this was a huge law that came out, like I said, in 2013. The federal deputy, a lot of people know who Benedita da Silva is. She was there for that historic moment. Let me see if I can find right here. In what's being called an historic day, new law that secures more workers' rights for domestic workers starts today in Brazil. This was April 3rd, 2013, where I posted this article. It was a big celebration because the women, a majority women area of work, although there are men, it's, who work as domestic servants as well. It's a female dominated position. And the majority of the maids in Brazil are usually Black. The other thing I wanted to point out here, the connection between somebody being Black and automatically assuming that if she's a woman, she must be a maid, right? This article from 2014, we saw 3 to 4 generations working in the same family as maids. Now we don't have to do this anymore. My daughters are in college. What else do we have here? If a Black woman is in a nice home, she must be a maid. I've talked about that in several other articles. You see this in media productions such as Brazil's ever popular novellas and soap operas. This from 2018. How long will Black women be maids in your novellas? Why Brazil's media needs more Black writers and directors. Here's another one. The resentment of studying in the same classroom as the Black maid's daughter. This from 2016. It was a big story in the media, like with Black Brazilians being able to have access to college, mostly due to affirmative action. A lot of the white middle class families were upset with that because they would see the maid who they clearly felt was beneath them going to the same college as their daughter or their son, right? So Brazilian society sees Black women as forever being the babysitter, the cleaning woman, or the maid. And when they become doctors, as this lady did, it kind of rocks the boat. It's like something people are not really comfortable with. Nannies and maids, relations that perpetuate racism and sexism. It goes on and on. I've got a number of articles on the blog that talk about this as well. So I wanted to get into what Manoel Soares talked about, in reference to his mother, because when I listened to what he said, it just reminded me of everything that before Preta Rara talked about this. There were other people who have spoken about how maids are treated in Brazil, in middle class Brazilian homes, right? So check out, as against this backdrop, let me get into what Soares had to say on the podcast. I'm going to just overdub what he said.
Porque imagina quando você se dá conta
Because
que a
imagine
sua mãe
when you
escondia
realize that
comida
your
da
mother
empregada,
hid food from the
que era
maid,
preta, que
that she was a Black
o papel
woman,
higiênico
that the
dos
maid's
empregados
toilet
era
paper was
aquele
pink
rosa,
and the toilet
e o
paper of the
dos
bosses,
patrões, porque tinha
because she
isso,
had
aqueles
that,
Era o
right?
fofinho.
It was
era
the
o fofinho.
fofinha
Quando o
kind.
copo era um
When the
copo
glasses were
diferente,
different,
quando a
when the
comida
food
da
was in the
geladeira,
fridge,
a
the
empregada
maids
não
couldn't
podia
eat the
comer a nossa
same
comida,
food.
ela tinha que comer
She had to eat
depois. Você
afterwards.
entendeu? Gente, eu me
Do you
lembro do
understand?
patrão da minha mãe
Guys, I
acolchando
remember my
ela e
mother's boss
ela.
pressing
Eu me
her
lembro
and
da minha
her.
mãe chegando
I
em casa
remember my mother
chorando
coming
porque
home crying
a
because the woman
mulher
gave her a
deu
bunch
um
of
monte de
used
escova de dente
toothbrushes
usada
and
e
telling her
disse
to
para ela,
just
é só você
wash them
lavar
in
na
hot
água
water
quente e dar para
because
eles
it was
usarem,
better than
que
nothing.
dá para
My
que
mother
isso
at home crying,
melhor
breaking
isso
the
que nenhuma.
toothbrushes, and
Minha mãe
having
em
to
casa
work the
chorando,
next
quebrando
day.
as escovas de dente
This is what
e
I
no outro
know,
dia tendo
that
que ir
apart from
trabalhar.
all the
Isso é o
S
que eu sei.
harassment and all the
Fora
moral
todo o
harassment,
assédio
that my
sexual,
mother
todo
was
o
always
assédio
a very
moral,
beautiful
que minha mãe
woman
sempre foi uma
within the
mulher muito
process.
bonita dentro do processo.
Now, I want to point out what he's talking about here, the difference between what they call the fofinha name brand toilet paper that's very common in Brazil versus this very cheap pink brand right here. Obviously, I mean, you can just notice what the differences are, just looking at that there. So he's talking about, and I Preta Rara talked a lot about this in the book, and sharing the personal stories of maids throughout the country, talking about the family would have different sets of dishes for the family or for the maid. The silverware, this is for the family, this is for the maid, this is for the maid, this is the cup for the maid, this is for the family. Different toilet paper. You're one of the family, but you can't eat the same food as the family in the house. You come and eat the scraps or the leftover, come to the table after the family is eaten, then you can come and sit by yourself at the table. This is something that, when I looked at the article, this is one of the things that she talked about. Then there's this idea, it's kind of like in Brazilian society where people talk about how, in some ways, people feel like the maid is supposed to be like, physically available for either the husband or the son of the household, right? So Manoel Soares actually talked about that. If you hear what I, in part of the interview that I just mentioned there, I wanted to see, yeah. So look here, following this topic for a number of years, this is Preta Rara, I've come across stories in which maids were forced to work long hours against their wills, not being able to sit at the same or eat the same food that is served to the family, not being able to use the same bathroom as the family, and the harassment, exploitation, among various other complaints. So again, it speaks on this level of a hierarchy in the country. That's why the 2013 maids bill was so important for women who work as maids across the country, still today. So I just wanted to cover this video, this small segment that Manoel Soares was talking about in reference to his mother working as a maid, because a social racial hierarchy clearly exists in Brazil. And when you give Black Brazilians the microphone, they start sharing their experiences of how this works in Brazil. So let's get the conversation started. Drop a comment in the comment section. Again, like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. If you've been here for more than a few videos, click on that notification bell so that you'll get updates on the latest videos that I post. And with that said, I'm going to end the video here and request that you all come back and check out the next video that I post.